Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Treasury of Constantinople. This week we'll talk about Heraclius's coins. Starting with the mints in operation during his reign, we'll then go over the bronze, silver, and briefly gold coins. As we saw on the last video, Heraclius was crowned emperor on the 5th of October, 610. At the time, the mints in operation were the main eastern mints of Constantinople, Nicomedia, Cyzicus, and Thessalonica, the western mints of Ravenna, Rome, Carthage, Syracuse, and Catania, as well as the mints of Alexandria and Kherson, and the small mints of Carthagena and Jerusalem. In 611, the Persians, at war with Byzantium since 602, renewed their campaigns into Mesopotamia, Syria, Anatolia, and Armenia. The following years saw heavy losses of territory for the Byzantines, and by the beginning of 614, most of Syria was in Persian hands. By June, they had reached the Sinai Peninsula, and the short-lived Jerusalem mint was closed. Around this time, the Persians minted follis in the Byzantine style, imitating a recent type issued by Heraclius. In 615, one of Khosrau's generals invaded Asia Minor and marched all the way to the city of Chalcedon, a mere 30 kilometers from Constantinople. In the same year, the Slavs tore a canyon through the Balkans, laying siege to the city of Thessalonica. The Byzantines managed to push them back by September. As a result of these attacks, minting in Cyzicus was temporarily stopped. Still in 615, Heraclius opened a mint in Seleucia Isauria, where he was training new recruits to fight against the Persians. In early 617, the Slavs once more raided deep into the Balkans, once more besieged Thessalonica, and the Byzantines once more pushed them back. Later in the same year, the mint of Seleucia Isauria was transferred to the city of Isara further inland, and operations in the Nicomedia mint were suspended. In 618, Persian forces invaded Egypt, and the mint of Alexandria stopped minting coins for the empire, and started minting coins in the Byzantine style for Khosrau II. The following year, the mint of Isara was closed. In 620, the Persians conquered Ankara and strengthened their position in Anatolia. This is probably when the famous story of Heraclius wanting to move the capital to Carthage and the Patriarch of Constantinople melting church silver and gold objects to raise money for the war effort happened. In 621, the Visigoths started attacking Byzantine Hispania. In 622, the Persians stationed in Anatolia suddenly marched west towards the Aegean Sea and took several islands including Rhodes, threatening a naval assault on Constantinople. Around Easter, Heraclius's counterattack plans were finally ready, and in one swoop he won a major victory against the Persians in Cappadocia, forcing them to retreat. In 624, the Visigoths took over the last few Byzantine strongholds in Hispania and conquered the city of Carthagena. Heraclius, for his part, was set on dealing with the Persians. First, he offered peace, that kind of special Byzantine peace that they offer, not when they're losing, but rather when they are winning but have no inclinations to keep fighting. So the Byzantines blackmail their opponents into accepting a peace treaty or else risk continuing the war, and instead of coming off slightly humiliated, they lose very badly. Khosrau unwisely said, "Thank you, but no thank you," and Heraclius proceeded to march straight towards the Byzantine-Sasanian border. Then he captured some Sasanian towns. Then he destroyed a Zoroastrian temple to make a point, and then he took a break because it was winter. Come spring, and it was revenge time. The whole of 625 saw Byzantine victories. Heraclius captured a number of fortresses and cities, went all the way to the Euphrates, took one of Khosrau's residences, killed some of his guards, and so on. In 626, the Persians, losing badly by this point as predicted, decided to launch a decisive strike. Khosrau's plan went like this. He would first send a letter to the Slavs, asking them to pretty please attack the Byzantines. Then he would send one of his generals to keep Heraclius, who was chilling in Trebizond at the time, occupied, and then send an army straight to Constantinople. It all went according to plan, and the Persians and Slavs laid a joint siege to Constantinople. Once Heraclius got wind of this, he came up with a plan of his own. He split his army into 3 parts. The first was dispatched to reinforce Constantinople. The second was to run interference on the Persian general left to keep Heraclius in Trebizond. And the third, headed by Heraclius himself, marched east to attack the Persian heartland. This also all went according to plan. the Slavs retreated, the Persians were forced to retreat, and Heraclius invaded Mesopotamia. Sometime during 626, the Mint of Cyprus was reopened, presumably between the beginning of the siege of Constantinople and Heraclius's counterattack, or shortly afterwards. Things went from bad to worse for the Persians, and they were forced to leave Egypt around 628, and so the Mint of Alexandria resumed operations. The Byzantines also took back Syria. The Byzantine-Sasanian War of 602 to 628, also called the Last Great War of Antiquity, thus ended. The following year, Heraclius implemented a coinage reform. The Mint of Cyprus, used mostly to cover military expenses, was closed. The Mint of Catania, in the island of Sicily, opened around 582 during the reign of Maurice Tiberius to supplement the Mint of Syracuse, was also closed. Cyzicus and Nicomedia, which had been only intermittently in operation for the past 15 years due to Persian incursions into Anatolia, were permanently closed, as well as Thessalonica, presumably due to the constant Slav raids into the Balkans. The last 10 years of Heraclius's reign saw the progressive and irreversible loss of territory to the Muslims in Syria, eastern Anatolia, and Egypt. Alexandria, surrounded on all sides by Muslim forces when Heraclius died, would surrender in September 642. As we just saw, most of Heraclius's 31-year reign was afflicted by constant wars. This had a big impact not only on the mints, but also on the coins themselves, and so we can still see today large, beautiful, 31mm 10+ gram pholis minted by Heraclius, as well as sad-looking and misprinted 23mm pholis, barely weighing 5 grams, and everything in between. Mints are not made equal, and so I think the best way to cover all of Heraclius's coins is by first looking at the coins from the main Eastern mints, then from the Western mints, then the military mints, then the special mints of Alexandria and Cherson, and finally the secondary mints of Jerusalem and Carthagena. During the first 3 years of Heraclius's reign, his follies were similar in size, weight, and design to the ones from previous emperors, especially Tiberius II and Maurice Tiberius. They usually measure 27 to 31 millimeters, weigh around 10 grams, and show the bust of Heraclius. You might think that pholis from Maurice Tiberius and Heraclius look nothing alike. After all, Maurice Tiberius is often depicted with distinctive consular robes, but that's mostly on coins from the Mint of Antioch. In coins from other mints, they can look extremely similar. In that case, if it's not obvious whether the emperor does or doesn't have a beard, then the easiest way to distinguish between the two is that Heraclius usually has perp as an abbreviation for perpetual, while Maurice Tiberius has PP. Heraclius's first son, Heraclius Constantine, was born in May 612, and so, on that year, a new reverse type was issued, showing the emperor on the left and little Heraclius Constantine, who would be crowned co-emperor the following year, on the right. Both are wearing civilian clothes. This reverse type is usually slightly heavier than the first one. The year Heraclius Constantine was born, his mother Eudokia died, and the next year Heraclius married Martina. A couple years later, we get Heraclius's third, pholis reverse type. It features Heraclius in the center, Martina on the left, and Heraclius Constantine on the right. Notably, there are no coins from the Mint of Cyzicus with this reverse type. That's because 614-15 is when the Persians marched all the way to Chalcedon. We can see the troubles the empire had as the weight of the follies dropped to 7 to 9 grams and 25 to 27 millimeters. These coins are also considerably rarer than the previous two types. 7 years later, a new type was issued. Very similar to the previous one, it still has Heraclius, Martina, and Heraclius Constantine on the obverse. But the reverse design is different. The word Anno was moved to the top, and on the left we have instead Heraclius's monogram. This type is also unmistakably smaller, with coins weighing around 6 grams and measuring 25 millimeters or less. Again, it bears reminding this started being minted in 622. The Persians had arrived in the Aegean by then and were threatening a sea attack on Constantinople. Syria and Egypt had also been in Persian hands for the previous 4 years. Note that this reverse type was not minted in Thessalonica. Heraclius's fifth reverse type was first issued in 629, 1 year after the end of the Byzantine-Sasanian War. These coins show Heraclius on the left wearing military clothes, and Heraclius Constantine on the right wearing civilian clothes. This reverse type came after the coinage reform, so the mints of Cyzicus, Nicomedia, and Thessalonica were all closed already, and only Constantinople minted them. The coins are usually smaller than 25 millimeters and weigh around 6 grams. They're also not particularly round. I hope you can now appreciate the Byzantine peace policy I mentioned before. You see, even though the war was over and the Byzantines won, their coins got considerably worse. Had the war stopped earlier when the Byzantines were already clearly winning, even accounting for the tribute sent to Persia, the Byzantine economy would still have been better off, but Khosrau refused, which forced the Byzantines to keep fighting. They won a resounding victory, but the cost was that imperial finances sank further. The year before Heraclius died, the sixth and last reverse type was issued. It features Heraclius in the middle, still wearing military dress, and his sons, Heraclius Constantine, 28 at the time, to the right, and Heraclius, 14, to the left, both wearing civilian clothes. In case you're wondering, the placement of people in Byzantine coins is not random. If there are 2 people, then the one on the left is the most important. But if there are 3 people, then the one in the middle is the most important, then the one on the right, then the one on the left. This is why Martina and Heraclius appear on the left, with Heraclius in the middle and Heraclius Constantine on the right. Quickly looking at the smaller denominations, we can see that earlier half-follis have the bust of Heraclius, while later ones have Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine, just like on the follies. Note that half-follis don't have many different reverse types, and there isn't the huge difference in sizes and weights we saw with the follies types. All 4 Eastern mints, Constantinople, Nicomedia, Cyzicus, and Thessalonica, minted half-follis. They also all minted decanumia, though they are extremely rare. The obverses always depict the bust of Heraclius, either facing or to the right, and the reverses have the I for 10 numia, with 2 types from Constantinople using Roman numerals instead. Pentanumia were only minted in Constantinople and Cyzicus. There was also a 3/4 follis coin. The 3/4 follis was only minted by 3 emperors, Tiberius II, Phocas, and Heraclius. Heraclius's types have the Greek lambda letter for 30 rather than Roman numerals and are much smaller and lighter. They were minted in Constantinople and Thessalonica. Moving to the Western mints, we first have Carthage, which minted half-follis, decanumia, pentanumia, and nummus coins, all with Roman numerals, and the bust of Heraclius. Ravenna, the capital of the Exarchate of Italy, minted several follis and half-follis types with both Greek and Roman numerals. They follow the general trend of the Eastern mints with the bust of Heraclius, then Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine, then them plus Martina, but all with a very distinctive Western look. Then we have Rome, which only minted half-follis and decanumia. Sicily is a very interesting mint. During the reign of Heraclius, they only minted 3 follis types, or rather counter-stamped them on coins shipped from Constantinople. So the types are distinguished by the counter-stamps, not the original coins. The first type was struck on follis from Anastasius, Justin I, and Justinian I. The obverse counterstamp has the bust of Heraclius on the left and his monogram on the right, while the reverse has the mint mark SCLS. The second type was struck on follis of Heraclius from the 20th or 21st year of his reign. The obverse stamp shows the busts of Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine, and the reverse again the mint mark SCLS. Note that this type is always struck on the wrong side. What I mean is that the busts are stamped on the reverse of the original coin, while the mint mark is stamped on the obverse. The third type also has the busts of Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine on the obverse stamp, but on the reverse stamp, there's Heraclius's monogram on the left and the mint mark SCS on the right. This type is usually struck on follis from Heraclius dated year 21 or later. Finally, we have the small mint of Catania, which minted only decanumia and pentanumia. For reasons unknown, the Greek I is used for one denomination and the Roman vi for the other. Decanumia from Catania can be found for a reasonable price. The mint of Seleucia Isauria was in operation between 615 and 617, and it minted 2 follis types and 1 half-follis type. The earlier follis shows both Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine standing. The mint mark for the coins from Seleucia Isauria is SELISU. The second and rarer type has the busts of Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine, and the half-follis is the same. The coins from Seleucia Isauria are rather big, usually larger than 30 millimeters, which is notable because in the same year this mint was opened the coins from Constantinople, and the other Eastern mints were reduced in size and weight. It's been suggested that these military mint coins were bigger to impress and reassure the locals as well as the soldiers who received the coins as a salary. In 617, the mint was transferred to Isauria. It has one follis and one half-follis type. Both look the same as the ones from Seleucia Isauria, with only the mint mark being different. The mint of Cyprus was opened in 626 and closed 3 years later. It minted a single follis type depicting Heraclius, Heraclius Constantine, and Martina. These coins, like the ones from the 2 other military mints, are quite large, usually measuring 27 millimeters or more, but they are much lighter, and unlike the others, they aren't particularly round. Notably, this specific type would be later imitated by the Muslims, and so there are probably more Arab Byzantine coins copying Heraclius's Cyprus type than actual follis from Heraclius minted in Cyprus. The mint of Alexandria was very busy minting their special denominations. There are quite a few types of the 12 Numia coin, some with Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine, others with Heraclius, Heraclius Constantine, and Heraclonus. The I and B are the Greek numbers for 10 and 2. The 6 Numia coin has the S for 6 on the reverse, and there are 3 obverse types, one with a cross on steps, one with Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine, and one with a palm tree. The 3 Numia coin has a gamma for 3, and there are actually 2 obverse types, this one with a palm tree and another one with an eagle. Finally, the Numion has a star on the obverse and the A for 1 on the reverse. The mint of Kherson, probably not very busy, minted a single type of 8 pentanumia, equivalent to 1 follis. On the obverse we have Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine standing, while on the reverse there is a person standing, probably Martina, holding a long P-headed cross. To the left there is a large H for 8. The Jerusalem mint was opened during the revolt of the Heraclii in 608 or 609, but by Phocas loyalists. During Heraclius's reign it remained in operation and minted 2 follis types. Both are very similar and rather large. I have mentioned it in previous videos, but it bears repeating that the Byzantine Empire wasn't big into silver, especially early on. Not all emperors minted silver coins. The quantities minted were very small, and most likely these were ceremonial coins. The names of these silver coins are also not clear, but today numismats use the terms siliqua and miliarizon. During the time of Heraclius, only 3 mints made silver coins. Carthage minted 3 types of half siliqua and 1 type of quarter siliqua. Ravenna minted 1 type of siliqua and 5 of quarter siliqua. And Constantinople minted 4 types of double siliqua, 2 types of siliqua, and 1 of half siliqua. The weights of these coins are not equal across the different mints. For example, the siliquae of Constantinople usually weigh 2 grams, but the ones from Ravenna weigh only 1.6 grams. Likewise, the half siliquae of Constantinople weigh 1 gram, but the ones from Carthage only 0.7 grams. The designs are also very different. In 615, Heraclius introduced a new large silver coin called hexagram. It had a stable weight of around 6.5 grams and measured 21 to 23 millimeters. Unlike the previously mentioned coins, the hexagrams were minted in massive quantities and were meant to be used on a daily basis, which they were as attested by the marks of usage found on most hexagrams. You might be asking yourself where all the silver came from, after all. You cannot quickly ramp up production of anything without the source materials. One theory is that it actually came from the silver vessels offered by the church to keep Heraclius from leaving Constantinople. If that's the case, then the correct date for the introduction of the new denomination is 620, not 615. Further evidence for this theory is the crude nature of the dies, the irregular and rudely sheared flans, especially for the first types, all of which suggests the haste minting of coinage during a crisis. There were over 10 types of hexagram minted in Constantinople, most showing Heraclius and Heraclius Constantine on the obverse and a cross on the reverse, always with the legend, "May God help the Romans." The difference between all these types is very minor. Ravenna was the only other mint to produce hexagrams, and they minted 2 types, similar to the ones from Constantinople. Before ending the video, let's just have a quick look at the gold coins. Heraclius, like the emperors before him since Constantine the Great, and the emperors after him until Alexius I, minted gold solidus, together with its fractions the semesses and tremesses. There were also quite a few lightweight solidus types, some weighing 23 siliqui, some 22, some 20. There were a total of 8 mints producing gold coins. Kherson, Jerusalem, and Thessalonica only minted solidus. Carthage minted solidus and semesses. Carthagena only tremisses. Constantinople, Ravenna, and Syracuse minted all 3 denominations. In terms of design, we see a progression from Heraclius to Heraclius, and Heraclius Constantine to Heraclius, Heraclius Constantine, and Heraclonus. Keep in mind that if anything it was the bronze coins copying the gold, not the other way around, and that war or not, Persians or not, Constantinople being under siege or not, the weight of the solidus never ever changed. The mint of Constantinople minted over 50 types of solidus. Ravenna exactly 9, Syracuse 5, Jerusalem 4, Carthage, Thessalonica, and Kherson 2 each. And that's it for this one. I hope you liked the video and have a great day.